As these throwback photos begin to surface, one thing becomes immediately clear. This isn't the polished, camera-ready version of the Roloff family that fans have come to know. This is something far more raw, far more personal, and in many ways, far more revealing. In these images, we see a younger Matt Roloff navigating life with determination, long before reality TV ever entered the picture. The setting feels different, less curated, more grounded in everyday reality. There's a sense of hustle, of building something from the ground up without the safety net of fame or public support. And that alone is something fans are finding both surprising and deeply compelling. But it's not just about Matt. These photos capture a full family dynamic that existed before millions of viewers became part of their lives. There are glimpses of simpler moments, family gatherings, early days on the farm, and candid interactions that weren't meant for an audience. Moments that feel genuine, unfiltered, and untouched by production. And that's where things get interesting. Because when you compare these snapshots to what fans have seen over the years on television, subtle differences start to stand out. The way the family interacted, the way the farm looked, even the energy in those moments, it all tells a story that feels slightly different from the one many people thought they knew. Some fans are even pointing out small details hidden in the background of these photos, things that hint at struggles, ambitions, and decisions that may have shaped everything that came later. It's almost like looking at puzzle pieces that were always there, just never fully noticed until now. And maybe that's why these images are resonating so strongly. They don't just show the past, they invite people to rethink the present. Because if this is where the Roloff story truly began, then what does that say about everything that followed? And more importantly, are we only now starting to understand the full picture? Matt Roloff's early life and family foundation. Long before cameras, contracts, and national recognition, Matt Roloff was already laying the groundwork for a life that would later captivate millions. But back then, there were no storylines, no edits, and no audience, just real life unfolding day by day. The throwback photos from this era don't just show a younger version of Matt, they reveal a mindset, a determination to build something lasting, even when the path ahead wasn't entirely clear. In these early snapshots, everything feels quieter, more grounded. The focus wasn't on presentation, it was on progress. You can see it in the way the family spent time together, in the unfinished spaces, in the small but meaningful milestones. This wasn't a polished version of life. It was raw, honest, and deeply personal. And that's exactly what makes these images so powerful today. At the center of it all was family. Alongside Amy Roloff, Matt was building more than just a home. He was building a foundation. Their shared vision wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about stability, opportunity, and creating an environment where their children could grow, explore, and feel supported. The photos reflect that intention in subtle ways, moments of togetherness, quiet routines, and a sense of unity that would later become a defining part of their story. And then there's the land itself, what would eventually become Roloff Farms. In these early images, it looks nothing like the destination fans recognize today. There are no elaborate attractions, no seasonal crowds, no large-scale operations. Just open space, early construction, and the beginning stages of a dream that was still taking shape. It's a reminder that what people later saw on screen was the result of years of effort, of trial and error, of vision meeting reality. What really stands out in this chapter is the sense of effort behind every detail. Nothing appears instant. Nothing feels handed to them. Instead, there's a clear sense that every step forward required work, patience, and belief in something bigger than the present moment. These weren't just early days, they were defining ones. Looking back, these pre-television years tell a deeper story than anything that aired on Little People, Big World. They show who the Roloff family was before the world was watching, before opinions, expectations, and public attention became part of their reality. And in many ways, they reveal the most authentic version of their journey, the part that existed purely for them. Because before the fame, before the headlines, and before the cameras started rolling, there was simply a family, a vision, and the quiet determination to turn that vision into something real. As these rare throwback photos began circulating, longtime viewers of Little People, Big World found themselves pausing, not just to look, but to truly observe. These weren't just old pictures. They were fragments of a story that had never fully been told on camera. One of the most striking elements fans immediately picked up on was the early state of the farm itself. Long before Roloff Farms became the iconic destination featured on television, these images revealed something far more raw and unfinished. There were photos showing partial structures, open land, and early construction projects that looked more like works in progress than polished attractions. It became clear that what viewers eventually saw on TV was the result of years, if not decades, of effort, planning, and persistence. These weren't overnight successes. They were built piece by piece, often through trial and error. And that realization added a new layer of respect for Matt Roloff. Fans have always known him as a visionary, but these images visually confirmed just how hands-on and determined he was in the early days. Whether it was designing unique structures or overseeing the groundwork, the photos captured moments of dedication that never made it into episodes. But beyond the physical transformation of the farm, it was the personal moments that truly resonated. Scattered throughout the collection were snapshots of everyday life, family birthdays, holiday celebrations, casual outdoor gatherings. These weren't staged or framed for an audience. There were no camera crews, no retakes, no storylines to follow, just genuine interactions between family members. And that authenticity is exactly what made these images so powerful. Viewers noticed the subtle dynamics, the way family members stood close together, the expressions that felt unguarded, the small details that hinted at relationships evolving over time. In contrast to the structured format of reality television, where moments are often edited and shaped into narratives, these photos felt refreshingly honest. They showed a version of the family that existed before public perception, before fame introduced new pressures and expectations. Another detail that didn't go unnoticed was just how much everyone has changed over the years. Younger versions of familiar faces sparked a wave of nostalgia among fans. It served as a quiet reminder of how long the journey has been, not just for the show, but for the family themselves. Time, as reflected in these images, became a character of its own. And yet, the emotional impact of these photos goes far deeper than simple nostalgia. For many viewers, these throwback images reshaped how they see the entire story of the Roloff family. It's easy to associate them primarily with their television presence, to think of their lives as something that began when filming started. But these photos gently challenge that idea. They remind us that the family had a full, complex life long before the spotlight ever found them. There's something grounding about that realization. It strips away the layers of production and brings everything back to something more relatable: family, effort, growth, and change. The laughter captured in those early moments, the milestones quietly celebrated, even the imperfections visible in the background, all of it paints a fuller picture. In a way, these photos don't just show the past. They reconnect the audience with the reality behind reality TV. And as fans continue to examine each image, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The story they thought they knew is only part of a much bigger journey, one that started long before the cameras ever began to roll. As these throwback photos continued to circulate across social media, the response from fans quickly turned into something much bigger than simple appreciation. It became a moment of reflection. Viewers who had followed the family for years suddenly found themselves looking back, comparing what they once saw on screen with what these newly revealed images seemed to suggest. And interestingly, many people began arriving at similar conclusions. For longtime fans, the first reaction was often nostalgia. These images brought back memories of earlier seasons, when everything felt more grounded, more personal, and less shaped by the expectations of television. People recalled the small, everyday moments that originally drew them into the story: the sense of togetherness, the focus on family life, and the feeling that what they were watching was raw and unfiltered. Seeing these photos felt like reconnecting with that version of the family again. But alongside that nostalgia came a sense of surprise. Some fans pointed out how different the family dynamic appeared in these older snapshots. Without cameras, production schedules, or the pressure of an audience, the interactions seemed more relaxed and natural. Smiles looked less posed, moments felt less structured, and the overall atmosphere appeared calmer. This contrast led many viewers to question how much of what they later saw on television was influenced, intentionally or unintentionally, by the presence of the show itself. This is where the conversation around authenticity really began to grow. Fans started discussing whether the earlier, pre-show version of the family represented a more genuine reality than what was eventually broadcast. Some argued that reality TV, by its nature, can never fully capture real life without shaping it in some way. Others felt that while the show still had authentic elements, these photos revealed layers that were never fully explored on screen. At the same time, there were viewers who took a more balanced perspective. They acknowledged that change is natural, especially over many years. Families evolve, priorities shift, and the experience of being in the public eye can influence how people communicate, behave, and even see themselves. From this point of view, the differences seen in the photos weren't necessarily negative. They were simply part of a longer, more complex journey. Still, the idea that fame might have played a role in these changes became a major talking point. Fans began reflecting on how increased attention, public scrutiny, and the demands of filming could affect personal relationships. Some suggested that certain moments on the show may have been heightened for storytelling purposes, while others wondered if the pressure to maintain a certain image over time created distance within the family dynamic. These discussions didn't come with clear answers, but that's exactly what made them so engaging. The photos didn't tell a complete story on their own. Instead, they invited interpretation. Each viewer brought their own perspective, their own memories, and their own feelings into the conversation. And as a result, the same images sparked a wide range of reactions, from admiration and curiosity to deeper questioning. Another interesting aspect of the fan response was how these photos encouraged people to rewatch or rethink earlier episodes. Some viewers mentioned going back to the beginning of the series with a new lens, paying closer attention to details they might have missed before. Others started comparing specific moments from the show to the emotions captured in the photos, trying to piece together a more complete understanding of the family's journey. In many ways, this reaction highlights something powerful about visual storytelling. A single image, especially one from the past, can hold layers of meaning that go far beyond what's immediately visible. It can trigger memory, emotion, and analysis all at once. And when those images involve people that audiences feel connected to, the impact becomes even stronger. Ultimately, what stands out most about these fan reactions is not just what people are saying, but why they're saying it. The emotional investment is still there. The curiosity hasn't faded. If anything, these throwback moments have deepened the connection between the audience and the story, encouraging a more thoughtful and nuanced conversation than ever before. And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. Sometimes, looking back doesn't just remind us of where something started, it helps us better understand where it is now. The deeper meaning behind revisiting the past. Looking back at these rare images isn't just about nostalgia, it's about understanding the full journey in a way that feels more real than ever before. When Matt Roloff shares these glimpses into the past, it creates a bridge between two very different versions of the same story. Life before the spotlight and life shaped by it. For Matt, these photos seem to carry a deeper sense of reflection. They capture moments that weren't created for an audience, weren't edited for television, and weren't influenced by outside expectations. Instead, they represent genuine milestones, early progress on Roloff Farms, family gatherings, and everyday experiences that helped shape everything viewers would later come to know through Little People, Big World. In many ways, sharing these images now feels like revisiting the foundation of it all. For longtime fans, this shift in perspective is significant. Over the years, audiences have followed the highs and lows of the Roloff family as presented on television. But these throwback photos offer something different, something unfiltered. They invite viewers to step outside of the narrative they've been shown and reconsider what they thought they understood. It's no longer just about the events that made it to air, but also about the quieter, unseen moments that shaped those events behind the scenes. There's also a growing awareness of how storytelling works in reality TV. Shows like Little People, Big World present real people and real situations, but they still follow structured narratives. These images challenge that structure by revealing pieces of life that didn't fit into episodes or story arcs. They highlight the gap between public perception and private reality, reminding fans that what they saw was only part of a much larger picture. At the same time, these photos bring attention to something universal: the passage of time. Seeing earlier versions of the farm, the family, and their environment emphasizes just how much has changed. It underscores the effort, growth, and transformation that took place long before cameras documented it. What might have once looked like a finished product on screen is now revealed as something that took years of dedication and persistence to build. And perhaps most importantly, these throwback moments humanize the entire story in a new way. Before the recognition, before the public discussions, and before the pressures that come with being on television, there was simply a family navigating life together. The images reflect ordinary days, moments that weren't meant to be significant at the time, but now carry meaning because of everything that followed. In the end, revisiting these photos isn't just about looking backward, it's about gaining clarity. It allows both Matt and the audience to reconnect with the origins of a story that has evolved over decades. And in doing so, it becomes clear that behind every televised moment lies a deeper history, one that continues to shape how that story is understood today. As we reach the end of this journey, those rare throwback photos shared by Matt Roloff offer something far more meaningful than simple nostalgia. They open a window into a time before the cameras, before the spotlight, and before Little People, Big World became a part of everyday life for the family. What makes these images so powerful isn't just what they show, but what they represent. They capture the foundation of a story that millions of viewers would later come to know, reminding us that every journey starts somewhere. And often, those early chapters are filled with moments that never make it on screen: quiet memories, hard work, and the building blocks of something much bigger. For longtime fans, these photos offer a chance to reconnect with the Roloff family in a more personal way. They strip away the production and bring everything back to something real and relatable. And for those just discovering the story, they provide a deeper understanding of how it all began and why it continues to resonate with so many people today. As more of these memories resurface, one thing becomes clear: the past isn't just something we leave behind. It continues to shape how stories are told, how people are understood, and how connections are formed. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway of all. Sometimes, looking back is the only way to truly appreciate how far a journey has come. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.